The day Commander Grok lost his tail was the day the Intergalactic Federation learned one immutable truth about Earth. Its wildlife was not to be trifled with. It started as a routine exploratory mission. Earth was a Category 3 life-supporting planet orbiting a rather unimpressive star. The Federation had ignored it for centuries, deeming it irrelevant. However, recent chatter about the planet's native species displaying signs of unpredictable aggression drew the attention of the High Council. This, coupled with rumors that humans had domesticated the planet's wildlife, prompted a mission to investigate. Grok, a seasoned officer, was sent to observe, record, and, if necessary, intervene. The crew of the stalwart Resolve landed discreetly in a dense jungle. Grok, along with a handful of soldiers, stepped out, clad in shimmering environmental suits designed to handle extreme planetary conditions. The thick canopy above filtered sunlight into a soft green glow, while the distant hum of insects filled the air. To Grok, it seemed peaceful. That was the first mistake. "You call this dangerous?" scoffed Lieutenant Drav, poking at a nearby bush with his scanning rod. "The vegetation barely reacts. I've been to moons with carnivorous moss more threatening than this." Grok nodded, his secondary eyes scanning for movement. "Stay alert. Reports suggest there are creatures here capable of overwhelming prey far larger than themselves. We cannot." A sudden hiss cut him off. The group froze. Grok gestured for silence, his clawed hand gripping his plasma rifle. From the shadows of a nearby tree, a slender, coiled figure emerged. It was long, scaled, and unnervingly silent. As it slithered closer, a series of ridges on its back shimmered in the light. "What is that?" whispered Drav, scanning frantically. "It's not registering in the database." "It doesn't need to," growled Grok. "Standard protocol. Threat elimination." He aimed his rifle at the snake and prepared to fire. Before he could, the snake struck. Its speed was incomprehensible, a blur that latched onto the commander's tail. The bite itself was quick, but the aftermath was anything but. Grok roared, flailing as the serpent coiled tighter, its fangs sinking deeper. "Get it off him," shouted Drav, but none of the crew dared approach. The snake hissed, its forked tongue flicking menacingly. "Do something," Grok bellowed, swinging wildly in an attempt to dislodge the creature. His plasma rifle was useless at this range. The snake, unfazed, tightened its grip. Lieutenant Drav finally stepped forward, holding an energy baton. He swung it down, narrowly missing the snake as it writhed. Instead, the baton connected with Grok's leg, sending an electric shock through his suit. "You incompetent whelp," Grok shouted, though his words were strained as the snake constricted further. Another soldier, Private Kren, tried a different approach. He grabbed a nearby stick and jabbed at the snake. It responded by whipping its tail around, slapping the stick out of his hands and sending him sprawling. The snake's eyes seemed to gleam with something unsettlingly close to intelligence. "Commander, it's not letting go," Kren stammered. "What is this thing?" Grok's vision blurred as his suit's alarms blared, signaling a breach. "Don't just stand there. Use the tranquilizer." Drav fumbled with his equipment, retrieving a small canister of sedative gas. He activated it, spraying the area around the snake. For a moment, it seemed to work. The creature slackened its grip, its body relaxing. Grok gasped, stumbling back. But the victory was short-lived. The snake, apparently unfazed by the chemical assault, resumed its attack with renewed vigor. It slithered up Grok's suit, bypassing armor plates with uncanny precision, and bit down on his shoulder. The commander howled. This is madness," Drav shouted. "How can such a primitive creature withstand Federation technology?" At that moment, the snake made a sound that none of them expected, a low, guttural hiss that almost resembled laughter. The crew collectively shuddered. "Fall back to the ship," Grok commanded, his pride now secondary to his survival. He staggered toward the landing site, the snake still latched onto him. His soldiers scrambled behind him, tripping over roots and vines in their panic. As they neared the clearing, the snake abruptly released Grok and vanished into the underbrush. The commander collapsed onto the ground, his suit in tatters. His tail hung limp, a section of it completely missing. The crew gathered around him, their faces pale. "Sir, are you?" Kren began, but the look in Grok's eyes silenced him. The snake's bite had delivered a venom that their medical scanners couldn't identify. Grok's body trembled as his systems worked to neutralize the toxin. The ship's medic rushed forward, injecting him with a broad-spectrum antivenom. As the crew lifted Grok onto a stretcher, Drav glanced back at the jungle. The shadows seemed alive, every rustle of leaves a reminder of the lurking danger. "Commander, should we initiate planetary quarantine?" Grok coughed, his voice weak but resolute. "Quarantine? We're declaring this place off-limits. No one is to step foot here again." The crew hurried into the ship, sealing the hatch behind them. As the engines roared to life, lifting them off the planet, a pair of glowing eyes watched from the treetops. The snake, coiled around a branch, flicked its tongue lazily. In the safety of space, the crew huddled in the medical bay. Grok, now stabilized, sat up on the stretcher. His tail stump was neatly bandaged, but his pride was irreparably damaged. The Council's verdict spread quickly throughout the Federation, sparking discussions, debates, and outright disbelief across various star systems. Earth, once dismissed as a mundane speck in the cosmos, was now recognized as a world of unparalleled danger. For Commander Grok, the fallout was bittersweet. While his warnings had been validated, the recognition came at the cost of his pride and a section of his tail. Back aboard the flagship, Grok was summoned to a final debriefing. This time, it was with the Federation's most senior strategists. The room was dimly lit, with holographic projections of Earth's ecosystems rotating slowly above the central table. Admiral Vaughn presided over the meeting, his expression as unreadable as ever. "Commander Grok," Vaughn began, his tone formal but edged with curiosity. "Your encounter on Earth and the subsequent experiment have forced us to rethink our understanding of planetary ecosystems. This raises critical questions about humanity's role in this environment. Do you believe they pose a direct threat to the Federation?" Grok took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Admiral, humans themselves may not seem dangerous at first glance. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Their fleets are negligible, but their resilience, their adaptability, and their coexistence with such hostile wildlife suggest a latent potential that should not be underestimated. If they were to harness their planet's fauna for warfare, the consequences could be catastrophic." Vaughn leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Then what do you recommend?" "Quarantine," Grok said firmly. "The planet must remain off-limits. No expeditions, no experiments, and no trade. Humanity must be monitored from afar. Any interference risks provoking a species that thrives in adversity." The strategists exchanged glances, murmuring amongst themselves. One, a thin, sharp-eyed official named Lice, spoke up. "Commander, your assessment is thorough, but the Federation's directive has always been exploration and expansion. Declaring Earth off-limits sets a precedent we've never seen before. Are we truly prepared to write off an entire planet?" Grok's claws tapped against the table as he considered his response. "If we don't, we may face consequences far beyond what we can imagine. Earth isn't just another planet, it's a crucible. Its life forms are forged in a unique and hostile environment. That chicken alone demonstrated strategic thinking and audacity that no Federation predator has ever exhibited. What if that's just the tip of the iceberg?" The room fell silent. Finally, Vaughn stood, signaling the end of the discussion. "We will deliberate further. For now, Earth is to remain under observation only. No further missions will be authorized without direct approval from the High Council." As Grok exited the chamber, a weight lifted from his shoulders. He had done his part, sounded the alarm, and shared his hard-won knowledge. What the Federation chose to do with it was out of his hands. Back in his quarters, Grok gazed out at the stars, his thoughts drifting to Earth. He couldn't help but wonder about the humans and their strange, formidable world. Were they aware of how the galaxy now regarded them? Did they even care? He doubted it. Humans seemed content to exist in their chaotic, unpredictable environment, unconcerned with the opinions of distant civilizations. A soft chime interrupted his musings. It was a message from Dr. Meldon. Opening the file, Grok was greeted with a detailed analysis of the snake's venom, the chicken's behavior, and even a speculative essay on Earth's evolutionary trajectory. Meldon's concluding statement caught his attention. "Commander, Earth is a mystery we may never fully unravel. But one thing is clear. Its creatures are not just survivors. They are contenders. Perhaps it is not Earth that should fear the Federation, but the Federation that should fear Earth." Grok smirked, his tail twitching slightly despite its bandages. Meldon wasn't wrong. Whatever lay ahead, Grok felt certain of one thing. The galaxy would never underestimate Earth again.